All right, folks, let's get into it because there's been a big development in Scottish football this week, and it's landed right at Celtic's door. We're heading into a weekend where all eyes are on Sunday's trip to Aberdeen. But before we even think about the match, there's a bit of off-the-pitch drama that we need to talk about. And it's all to do with the SPFL tightening the rules and making it crystal clear they're no longer messing around when it comes to pyro inside stadiums. Here's the story. You'll remember Trophy Day last season at Celtic Park. That day when the atmosphere was electric, the stands were bouncing, and the North Curve set the tone with a big display of flares. They lit them before the game, and the league claims there was pyro going off during the match as well. Now, for many fans, that's part of the spectacle. For the SPFL, it's a straight-up breach of the rules. They've hit Celtic with a suspended punishment, and it's quite specific. For one future SPFL match at Celtic Park, the North Curve will lose 200 seats. That's right, 200 fans won't be allowed in that area. The key word here is suspended, which means it only kicks in if there's another breach involving pyro at any SPFL match before the 30th of June 2026. So basically, if it happens again this season or the next, those seats will be empty. And this isn't the first time in recent months that we've been hit with a ticket cut. Back in March, Celtic were handed a 500-seat reduction for the next time we reach the League Cup semi-final at Hampton. If there's another pyro-related breach in that competition, that penalty jumps to 800. So you can see the pattern here. The SPFL aren't just handing out fines and hoping for the best. They're making the punishments visible. Empty seats on big occasions, especially in areas known for noise and color, send a clear message. It's a tricky one because the pyro debate is one of those topics that splits opinion right down the middle. Some supporters see it as part of football culture. The noise, the color, the intensity. They point to countries like Sweden or Norway, where authorities and fan groups have worked together to manage pyro displays in a controlled way. Others will tell you flat out that it's dangerous, that it affects people with respiratory conditions, and that it has no place in the stands. And the truth is, both sides have points worth listening to. I think most people who enjoy seeing a bit of pyro would agree it's not worth risking someone's health, but equally an outright ban without any discussion leaves a lot of supporters feeling alienated. Right now, though, the SPFL clearly aren't in the mood for conversations or compromises. Their stance is the rules are there, and if they're broken, there will be consequences. They've even said Celtic breached rules H36 and H37, which if you look them up cover unacceptable conduct in a pretty broad sense. That gives them the legal room to hand out these punishments without much wiggle room for clubs to argue back. And they're not just going after Celtic. Aberdeen, Partick, Thistle, Rangers, and Motherwell have all been cited in recent seasons for similar offences. This is a league-wide crackdown. From Celtic's perspective, the danger here is that one incident could see those 200 seats in the North Curve empty for a game that really matters. And if that happens, it doesn't just hurt the fans who lose their place, it impacts the whole match day atmosphere. Anyone who's been at Celtic Park knows that the North Curve is a big part of what makes the stadium come alive. Losing that energy for even one match would be noticeable. So where do we go from here? That's the million-pound question. Does this deter pyro use completely, or do supporters push back and keep doing it, accepting the risk of sanctions? And if it keeps happening, are we going to start seeing empty blocks of seats at grounds across the country on a regular basis? The SPFL will hope the threat alone is enough to stamp it out. But if the last few years have shown us anything, it's that fan culture doesn't always bend to official rules, especially when those rules are unpopular. In the bigger picture, this is also about control and image. The SPFL, like every league in Europe, wants to present a family-friendly product to broadcasters, sponsors, and new fans. Pyro, no matter how much color it adds, doesn't fit neatly into that image. And in a world where television rights are a huge part of a league's income, the people running the show will always side with the safest, most controllable option. That means more cameras in the stands, more stewards on duty, and as we're seeing now, stricter punishments when the rules are broken. For the fans who love pyro, this will feel like another step in the long-running battle between supporter culture and football authorities. For those who dislike it, it will feel like a win for safety and for the game's reputation. But either way, it's clear that the SPFL aren't bluffing. This isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's a very public warning shot. And here's The suspended nature of the ban is actually clever from the league's point of view. It puts the responsibility squarely on the supporters. If Pyro shows up again, everyone will know exactly who triggered the punishment, and that could even create divisions within fan groups. That's a tough place for a club to be in, trying to back his fans while also avoiding the next penalty. We'll see how it plays out, but with the season just getting underway, it's already clear that this story's not going away anytime soon. If anything, it might become one of the subplots of the year. Will Celtic and the rest of the league manage to avoid further sanctions, or will we be talking about empty seats when the big matches roll around? The only thing that's certain right now is that the SPFL have drawn their line in the sand, and they're daring clubs and fans to cross. Moving away from the controversy for a moment, let's shift the focus onto a man who has quietly been part of Celtic's DNA for well over a decade. James Forrest. He's one of those players who has been around so long that you almost take him for granted. But the truth is, we're talking about one of the most decorated footballers in the club's modern history. And this week, Forrest found himself in front of the media, but not for the usual pre-match press duties. The reason he was put up to speak was tied to something much more special and much more important than any one game of football. Celtic recently hosted a group of season ticket holders with sensory impairments at Celtic Park for what they called the Touching the Trophies experience. It was a chance for blind and partially sighted supporters, as well as fans with other sensory challenges, to get up close with the two trophies the club won last season. It's one of those events that cuts right through the noise of transfers, tactics, and results, and reminds you what the club actually means to people. The smiles on faces, the hands running over the silverware, the pride that comes with feeling part of the Celtic family. That's the stuff that really matters. And Forrest was front and center meeting fans, chatting, and being a part of it all. You could tell he understood the significance of the occasion. Once the formalities of the event were over, the conversation inevitably turned to football. Forrest was asked about his targets for the season ahead, and his response was exactly what you'd expect from someone with his experience. No grand statements about personal milestones or statistics. Just a focus on being available, contributing whenever he's on the pitch, and helping the team in whatever way he can. In his position, he knows the expectation is always to create. Chances chip in with goals and be decisive in the final third. It doesn't matter if you're a 20-year-old academy graduate or a 34-year-old veteran. At Celtic, that's the standard. Of course, the question soon turned towards the bigger picture. European football is looming, and there's the not-so-small matter of potentially having to travel thousands of miles for qualifiers. Forrest has been around long enough to know the drill. He spoke about the demands of long-haul travel time zone, changes, and the importance of the club's sports science staff in keeping players in peak condition. There was no hint of complaint, just the acceptance that these are the realities of playing for a club like Celtic, where big games come thick and fast. Then there's the squad itself. The transfer window is still open, and fans are debating whether enough has been done to strengthen the team, particularly out wide. Forrest, though, was diplomatic. He pointed out that Celtic have always added players in every window since he's been there, and that competition for places is part of life at a big club. In fact, he sees it as a positive, a way to push yourself, learn from others in your position, and raise your own level. It's the kind of attitude you'd expect from someone who has survived 17 seasons at the top, seeing off wave after wave of new signings and still finding a way to contribute. One of the most interesting parts of the media session came when Forrest was asked about the months ahead. This isn't just a normal run of fixtures. We're talking about Champions League nights, high-pressure domestic games, and the intensity of an early season visit to Ibrox. It's the sort of schedule that can tempt you to look ahead, but Forrest insisted the squad's focus is always on the next game. That's not just a cliche. He genuinely believes it's the only way to avoid slip-ups. Start thinking about the big glamour ties, and you risk dropping points in the games that get you there. Naturally, talk eventually turned to his career as a whole. Forrest turned 34 this summer, and with his contract set to expire at the end of the season, the question of retirement is starting to hang in the air. He didn't bite when asked directly about his future, keeping the focus on enjoying his football and making the most of whatever time he has left. But you could tell he's aware of the reality. He's much closer to the end than the beginning now. That said, he still sees himself contributing, and most supporters would agree. Even if he's no longer able to start every game, there's a case to be made that he remains the most reliable right-sided option in the squad. There's also the rare and romantic possibility of Forrest becoming a true one-club man. In the modern game, that's almost unheard of. The last player to really achieve it at Celtic was Paul McStay, and that was back in the 90s. Plenty have come close. Callum McGregor has been here his whole career. Apart from a loan spell, John Kennedy was Celtic through and through until injury cut his career short. But no one has quite managed to spend their entire professional life here. Without any detours, Forrest could be the first in over 30 years, and that's not something to dismiss lightly. When pressed on whether he'd like to finish his career at Celtic, his answer was classic Forrest. Humble, understated, and with the sense that he almost finds it awkward to talk about himself. He joked that it was more likely the club would decide to move on from him than the other way around. But you get the feeling that if Celtic offered him another year, maybe even 2, he'd take it. In a heartbeat. And there's a good chance that offer will come. Experience counts for a lot. And when you've been part of as many title-winning squads as Forrest has, you know how to handle pressure moments. The other interesting question is what comes after football. Forrest hasn't started his coaching. Badges, yet preferring to focus entirely on playing while he's still active. But he's clear about one thing. He wants to stay in the game in some capacity. Whether that's as a coach, a club ambassador, or even dabbling in the media side of things, he doesn't see himself walking away from football altogether. For someone who's been immersed in it since he was a kid, that's hardly surprising. All of this paints a picture of a player who even in the twilight of his career still has plenty to offer. Not just on the pitch, but in terms of setting standards for younger players. It's easy to forget that Forrest has been through just about every scenario you can imagine in a Celtic shirt. Title races, cup finals, European heartbreaks, managerial changes. He's seen it all. That kind of experience can be taught, and it's invaluable in a squad that's still finding its rhythm after a summer of change. As the questions wound down, there was a final nod to the past. Specifically last season's Scottish Cup final defeat. That loss still stings, and Forrest admitted it's not something you just forget. But rather than dwelling on it, the focus now is on using it as motivation. Aberdeen away is never an easy fixture, and while Celtic have a strong record at Pittodrie, they'll need to be sharp to keep it going. So what did we learn from James Forrest this week? That he's still as committed as ever, still hungry to contribute, and still carrying himself with the humility that's defined his entire career. He might not make headlines with bold predictions or fiery sound bites, but in a sport that often thrives on noise, there's something refreshing about that. He's steady, reliable, and utterly Celtic, and for as long as he's in the squad, you know he'll give everything he has for the shirt. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. In a surprise turn of events that has sent ripples through the Scottish football scene, global football icon Cristiano Ronaldo has recently spoken glowingly about Celtic FC, Scotland's most storied football club. During an informal media interaction, the Portuguese superstar offered unprompted praise for the Hoops, lauding their rich history, passionate support, and unique footballing culture. The comments, made during an interview while on international duty, have raised more than a few eyebrows and sparked widespread speculation across Glasgow and beyond. Ronaldo, who currently plies his trade in Saudi Arabia, remarked that Celtic is one of those magical clubs in football. Their fans, their stadium, everything about them breathes football, while many assume the comments were simply respectful. Acknowledgement, some insiders believe this could hint of more than admiration. In a world where footballers increasingly seek meaningful late career moves rather than simply lucrative ones, the idea of Ronaldo one day donning the green and white hoops, however fanciful, has ignited passionate debates. Parkhead faithful, already known for their deep emotional connection to the club, have taken to social media to dream about what such a move could mean, especially with the Champions League regularly returning to Celtic Park. Of course, it's important to recognize that at 40 years old next season, Ronaldo's best days on the pitch are behind him. Yet his influence, both commercially and within the dressing room, remains unquestionable. Celtic's historic identity as a club of spirit and culture, not wealth and galacticos, seems at odds with the usual profile of a Ronaldo destination. But perhaps that's precisely what makes the notion so tantalizing. Could the final chapter of his career be less about goals and more about legacy? The rumor mill hasn't stopped since his comments aired, with some pundits even daring to mention potential conversations behind closed doors. One particularly well-placed source in Lisbon claimed that Ronaldo has long harbored affection for the Celtic support since facing them in the Champions League during his Manchester United days. Whether that admiration has grown into something more serious remains to be seen, but in a summer filled with wild transfer tales, this one has a peculiar scent of possibility that refuses to fade. The idea of Ronaldo walking out to "You'll Never Walk Alone" at a packed Celtic Park is more than a fever dream. It's now a whispered wish among the faithful. Interestingly, some believe this kind of move aligns well with recent trends among elite footballers choosing legacy projects over financial windfalls. Lionel Messi's move to Inter Miami was once dismissed as unlikely, yet it's now reality. Could Ronaldo be inspired by a similar trajectory, using the twilight of his playing days to inspire a new generation in a football-mad city like Glasgow? The Boys have a squad full of young talents who could thrive under the tutelage of a player like Ronaldo, even if his on-field role were limited. Moreover, Celtic's participation in European competition offers an appealing platform, though. The Scottish Premiership doesn't carry the same glamour as La Liga or the Premier League. Its authenticity, grit, and history are undeniable. If Ronaldo is indeed considering a romantic finale to his glittering career, there are few places more fitting than Celtic Park, a ground that has seen legends born and remembered for generations. For now, the idea remains in the realm of speculation, but fans and pundits alike are watching closely for any further hints, any tweet, any photograph, any nod that might lend weight to the growing buzz. From a commercial standpoint, a Ronaldo move to Celtic would be seismic. The club, already one of the most supported in the world relative to population, could see an explosion in shirt sales, social media reach, and global media attention. Sponsors would queue up to be associated with such a historic union. While Celtic has never been a club to chase celebrity signings, preferring instead to build cohesive, hard-working squads, even the most purist supporter might struggle to contain excitement at the thought of CR7 at Parkhead. Already, bookmakers have begun adjusting odds, not necessarily because of hard intel, but because the volume of chatter is too loud to ignore. Some local journalists have even reported that Ronaldo's team has had informal contact with a major Scottish brand, a possible indication of groundwork being laid. The dream scenario sees Ronaldo helping Celtic make a deeper run in Europe while galvanizing a youthful squad domestically. And while it's all still very much a rumor, it's the kind of rumor that won't go away quietly, especially when it touches the hearts of so many who have spent lifetimes supporting the green and white cause. Still, it's crucial to temper expectation with realism. Ronaldo's lifestyle, demands, and brand are unlike anything Celtic has ever dealt with. The logistics alone would be massive, from wages to image rights to handling international media frenzy. Yet football is full of twists, and stranger things have happened. In many ways, Ronaldo playing for Celtic would represent a perfect circle of football's universality, a global icon joining a club rooted in working-class tradition, with one of the most storied pasts in the game. The notion has taken hold because it speaks to something deeper than contracts and tactics. It's about legacy, emotion, and footballing poetry. Whether this idea grows legs or fades like many a summer rumor will depend on many unseen factors. But for now, the conversation has started. Ronaldo has spoken, and Celtic supporters are dreaming. And sometimes in football, dreams have a funny way of becoming reality. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.